Prayin, a Sellin, and a lot of books. Anna staggered inside and pulled herself upstairs. She really was exhausted. It was morning and the light was shining through her bedroom curtains. She heard movement in the next room. Her mother must be awake. Oh, I wish I could sleep, she thought as she closed her eyes tightly, but images flew through her mind and she kept thinking of the box and what it was capable of. Are you awake? Eunice opened Anna's door and popped her head around the corner. Are you all right? You look as though you haven't slept all night. Oh, I didn't. Strange bed and everything. Well, we have a busy day today, Mac's showing us around the city dome. Can't I just stay here? We have come all this way to see Mac, and that is jolly well what we're going to do. Now get up and get dressed. We are leaving in 10 minutes. With that, she withdrew her head and shut the door. Perfect, said Anna, crossly to herself. If only I could sleep for longer. She started to get dressed, and the cogs... She started to get dressed. The cogs of thought slowly clicked into place. The box. Maybe I could go back in time and get some sleep. She searched around in her dressing gown pockets for the small casket. Where was it, though? Her pockets held tissues, a few coins, and, oddly enough, a pocket calculator, but it yielded no sign of a magical box. Anna searched again, including all round her room. Exhausted, she collapsed onto her bed. What if she'd lost it? Dropped it on the way home last night? Perhaps. Maybe it had been stolen. What if it got in the wrong hands? Anna wasn't sure whose hands that might be, but she was certain that the box could be used for untold evils as well as for good. Anna searched again, but finally, giving up, she got dressed and went downstairs. Oh, at last, shouted Eunice as Anna reached the bottom step. Come on, let's go. But I haven't had any breakfast, pleaded Anna. Well, you should have hurried up then, shouldn't you? Mac only has a couple of hours. Sulkily, but obediently, Anna followed her mother and brother out of the house and into Gabble Street. Eunice's idea of a fun day out was greatly different from what Anna had hoped. Their first port of call was the city dome Prayin. Anna had been to Prayin's before. Their closest one was just a crumbled-down shack just the other side of Nilsav. This Prayin was certainly more impressive than her local one, but it still seemed to have something wrong. It was definitely large, and there were turrets and a couple of gargoyles. Maybe it was the light shade of pink that the designer had seen fit to paint his exterior, or maybe it was the fact that the whole building seemed to be floating a foot above the ground. Anna wasn't sure about this Prayin at all. It appeared to have all the things that it shouldn't, yet all the things it should. Shall we go in? Asked Eunice. Oh, do we have to? Whined Anna. Most certainly. That is why we're here, to see the sights. How do we get in, then? A step appears when you want to enter, said Mac knowingly, and he stepped forward, and just as he did, a small ornate stepping stone appeared in front of him, allowing him to step up into the great doorway. Come on, then. Eunice hesitantly walked towards the Prayin, and as before, the step appeared in front of her. Testing its solidity, she slowly stepped up and joined Mac. Anna was less trusting and decided to jump the gap rather than put her faith in a small piece of invisible rock. Inside the Prayin was large and very, very empty. There was nothing in it at all. At least at a local Prayin there'd been seats for people to sit on and a large table at the far end with crosses on. But here there was just space. Oh, and people. As Anna came to look at the people around her, something odd seemed to strike her. They were all crouching in rows, facing a tall man in long robes. Come on, let's go and sit down, said Mac. Eunice looked a little worried, but wasn't about to let the sigh down. What are we supposed to sit on? Asked Anna sarcastically. On chairs, of course, like everyone else. Mac had finally lost it, she thought. There weren't any chairs. Everyone was just pretending. She waved a leg onto someone close by. Nothing. It was just air. This is the weirdest place I've ever been to, said Anna to herself. You need to believe. If you don't, they're not there, Mac said to Anna behind a row of people. Let's sit here. Anna looked at the air behind her. Definitely no chair. Reluctantly, she lowered her weight and sat down. Everyone looked around to see where the noise had come from. "I told you have to believe the chair is there," he said, as he helped his sister to her feet. "It's quite easy when you get the hang of it," said Eunice, who was now sitting beside her. "I still can't see a chair," said Anna to her mother. "Just say to yourself, the chair is there, and know when you say it that it is true." "But it isn't true." "I mean, you're sat in mid-air." "I most certainly am not," said Eunice crossly. "I'm sitting on a lovely little ornate chair with a red velvet cushion. Oh, I can see it as clear as day. Look, here there are even little dragon's feet at the end of the legs." Anna looked to where her mother was pointing. Dragon's feet? Wait a minute, she could just see them. They were faint, but yes, they did look like claws. She moved her gaze up towards the rest of the chair. It was a very nice-looking chair indeed. Her mother was right. She could just make out the red velvet. Anna turned her gaze to where the chair should be, and there it was, as large as life and just as real. It had dragon's feet too, at the bottom, but instead of red velvet, it had yellow felt and blue tassels around the edge. "That's amazing, I can see it." "Well done," said Mac, giving her a friendly punch. "Now look around you." Anna looked up at the rest of the church. The walls were filled with flowers of every kind, and from the ceiling hung angels and fairies, ribbons cascading from their hands. The altar at the far end was huge and covered with the most lavish silk cloth. The crosses on top were meters high and made of pure gold. All the congregation was sitting on brightly coloured and ornate chairs, each different from the next, and each as beautiful. "This is incredible. So amazing. I'm amazed it doesn't get stolen. It all looks so expensive." "Oh, it's not real in the real sense, just in the faith sense." "Pardon?" "Well, it is all real, and the reason it is real is because of the faith of the people. When there's no one here, the Prayin is empty. It also doesn't exist outside the building." "Oh, I see," said Anna. "Very clever." "It certainly is." Suddenly an orchestra struck up a tune in the background, and the priest bowed and walked towards a small archway and disappeared from sight. Everyone started to stand up and talk to one another. "Come on then, where would you like to go next?" asked Mac. "What about the library?" "Oh, do we have to? I hate books," Anna pleaded. "You'll like these ones. It's quite spectacular," said Eunice, standing up. Mac led them out of the Prayin and down a narrow street. The street looked strangely familiar to Anna, but she couldn't remember from where. After they had walked a little further and past a small inn, she remembered where she had met Hobbs and him being thrown out of that very same restaurant. Anna wondered as she walked, where is he now? Then, as she went on, the cogs in her brain ticked over another notch, and the train of realization puffed into the station. Hobbs had taken the box. Anna wasn't usually the one to point the finger, but she was looking back now to the last time she'd seen him, and she hadn't noticed it then, but it was staring her right in the face now. He had a look about him, that twinkle in his eye, and she could see it in her mind, mocking her for being so stupid. Why had he taken it from her? It must have been to make money somehow, but how? What would he do? "Come on, slow coach, we're nearly there," shouted Eunice over her shoulder. Oh my goodness. Well, I never. Eunice had stopped dead in her tracks. She was staring transfixed on a large building coming into view. Anna, being a little behind, couldn't see anything until she stepped forward, and there it was. "I have never seen anything like it," said Anna in awe, as she could see it too. Large didn't quite cover it. It was gigantic, with a lot of large and huge added in on top. The turrets were incredible and also quite improbable, as each turret on the roof was vast and covered in smaller turrets, which in turn were covered in smaller ones and smaller ones. The roof was a mass of points, all neatly tiled, most of which even had a little flag on top. The walls of the building were just as busy. Near the roof were hundreds of gargoyles, all squashed together and pulling strange faces, and under them were the statues. They were beautiful and stood in elegant dresses with ribbons all around them, neatly carved in stone. Each one was different from the next. The building had been finished off with hundreds of pillars which surrounded the base. "Well, here we are then," said Mac proudly. "Is it? Is this the library? It looks far too grand." "Is this it? Is this the library? It looks far too grand." "Well, it is. Come on, let's go in." Again Mac led the way, opening the door to allow his mother and sister to go in. "Well," was all Eunice could mutter. The inside was just as incredible as the outside, but in a completely different way. There were books everywhere, with walls lined with shelves which stretched from floor to ceiling, or rather from books to more books, as floor and ceiling were just as full of reading matter as the walls. Tiny shelves had been built all the way into the turrets, and they contained tiny books, some almost impossible to see. The floor was just as full. Shelves had been built on their sides, and over the books were large sheets of glass. In the centre of the room, many tables were surrounded by people sitting and browsing their chosen books. Every now and again, a pillar had been placed around the room, and on them were large books. Anna hesitantly walked over to a few books towards one of the pillars. On it was a catalogue of all the books in the library. She flicked through the first pages. There were hundreds of books listed on every page. Anna pondered a while and decided to look under the M's, just to see what they had on magic and magics. She eventually reached the pages, and running her finger down it, she read some of the titles. Hints, Tips and Magical Spells. Life Magic and the Houseplant. Magical Doorways. Magical Phrases in a Non-Magic Society. Magic in the World Today. The Magic Pages. The Touch of Magic. War and Magic. There were certainly some very popular titles, but there was one that caught her attention. It was only short, but straight to the point. Magical Doorways. She looked up the reference number and wandered around the library. 555. "Oh, it must be here somewhere," muttered Anna. "I'm sorry, can I be of assistance?" said a small voice from around her knee. Anna looked down to see a small elderly elfin looking up at her. I'm looking for 555, but I can't seem to be able to find it." "Oh, no problem, just follow me." The elfin led Anna around the tables to the back of the building. Here the shelves looked slightly older than the others, and the books certainly had a decayed quality about them. "Here you go, 555. Do you need any help finding the book you're acquiring?" No, I think I'll be all right. Thank you, though, for helping me." "That's quite all right. My job, you see. I'm Bookit, the head librarian. Anything else, just call." And he sped off on the quest to help somebody stuck in the vicious plant section. Anna ran her eye down the shelves and found many of the books she'd seen in the catalogue, but not the one on magical doorways. Deciding to choose something else, she reached for Magical Phrases in a Non-Magic Society and went over to one of the tables in the centre of the room. "What you got there, then?" came a familiar voice over her shoulder. Max sat down next to her and placed a large pile of books down in front of him, all about the weather. "Oh, nothing. The book I really wanted to look at was out." "Well, it'll be here somewhere. You can't take books out of here," said Mac as he started to thumb through a large volume on weather cleaning. Anna settled down and flicked through the pages of her book. It looked interesting, but didn't really look as though it would be much use. Just then, across the table, two elvins started to argue. There was a lot of loud whispering, and their book that they'd been looking at was slammed shut. "Shh!" came many voices around the room, but the bickering continued. Suddenly, from behind a bookcase appeared two large trollegs, who creaked across the floor towards the elvins, and before they knew what was happening, the elvins were lifted off their seats and silently carried towards the books. They screamed to be released, but to no avail. The bookcase shut, and silence resumed in the library. "I wonder what they were reading," thought Anna to herself, and she carefully reached over to the table towards the book and gingerly retrieved it. Anna looked at the moth-eaten book in her hands. This was it. It was Magical Doorways, the book she'd been looking for. Triumphant, she opened the pages and looked at the introduction. Magical doorways were once the height of their creation, used to protect and hide. Although greatly used in their time, there are fewer and fewer to be found in modern society. Anna turned a few pages. There must be something about the sleeping door in here. Some of the most sophisticated doorways were introduced with a slumber mechanism, which reduced the amount of magic required to keep it functional. Doorways of this type need arousing before any work can be achieved, usually by means of a password or a tune. That was it, a password. That must be what she had to do to open the door. Anna continued to look through the book, but there was no mention what the password may be or how else it might be opened. Anna, come on, we have to go. Mac has to be back at work soon. Eunice patted Anna on the shoulder. Put your books back and off we go. Anna reluctantly took her books back to their shelf and walked back to meet Mac and Eunice. On their way back to Gabble Street, they passed a small, rickety old shop. It was bursting at the seams with curios. Anna could barely see in the window for the amount of strange objects inside. There were chocolate teapots and black light bulbs, sticks which bounced, and scarves so long you could wrap your entire body in them. Anna noticed a small cage with tiny creatures in it that were running on the spot and doing sit-ups. This place is most peculiar, said Anna. Come on, let's go in, said Eunice encouragingly. We can't stay long, though. Inside there was no space left unfilled with bizarre knickknacks and odd objects. Anna walked towards a large trumpet-like funnel attached to a small bicycle. On the bicycle was a small dog who was pedalling away furiously. Eventually, after pedalling faster, some creaky music could be heard out of the funnel. What a clever dog, she said, as she patted the canine on the head. Behind the dog was a small cage with a very cross-looking dragon in it. Anna had never seen a real dragon before, only pictures in a magazine, and she reached out towards him. I wouldn't touch him, miss. A round elderly man stepped out from behind a counter and walked towards him. Terrible temper he's got. Scare people off, frightful. Had him years. Well, miss, what is it you were after? Nothing really. We're just looking. This is a real dragon, isn't it? Why, yes, miss. Called him Blinkin. What an odd name. Well, he's just a blinking nuisance, really. He's always moody. Can never calm him down. Oh, I think he's rather sweet. Blinkin gave her a dirty look. Shouldn't dragons be, larger? Well, usually yes, but this one has a bit of a sad story. He had once been a great dragon, one of the largest ever known. But he grew greedy and wanted to become the largest and most powerful of all dragons. One day he chanced upon a great magic and bargained that he should magic him more power and make him grow, or he would eat him. The magic wisely declined, and Blinkin got angry and tried to eat him. But before he had a chance, the magic cast a spell, making Blinkin the dragon you see before you. Oh, that's terrible. So he used to be big. Yep, but with size comes big ideas, and he got too greedy for his own good. Now he's just grumpy. Anna looked sadly at Blinkin. Blinkin looked at Anna. I think that he's just a bit lonely. Can I hold him? He'll take your fingers off, miss, I can assure you. Oh, he doesn't look all that bad. Please. I'm sure he will be good. The shopkeeper gingerly reached over to the cage and opened the small door. Then he turned and ran behind his desk. Come on, Blinkin, soothed Anna as she slowly placed her hand in front of the cage door. Gently now. To the surprise of the shopkeeper, and most probably to Blinkin as well, out he came. He stepped carefully onto Anna's hand, sniffing the air and looking all around him in case it was a trap of some kind. There, I knew you weren't bad. Amazing, muttered the shopkeeper under his breath. Mum, look at this dragon, and she patted him on the head. Eunice broke herself away from her in-depth inspection of some antique rugs at the far end of the shop. What is it, dear? A dragon, look. Blinkin obediently perched on her hand, cleaning his talons. Oh, well, that's nice, dear. Excuse me, selling keeper. Yes, you, behind the counter. The small man had been so frozen to the spot with amazement that he took a while to come round. Yes? Oh, yes, madam. Sorry about that. What can I do for you? And he walked over to Eunice, and they had a short talk about rugs. Don't worry, Anna whispered to Blinkin. She never notices anything I do. You're really friendly, aren't you? Were you just lonely? Anna tickled him under his chin. That was amazing. You got the gift, you know, said the Sellin keeper as he returned from his bargaining with Eunice. What do you mean? The gift. Not many can hold a dragon, you know. Very rare it is. In fact, never seen it myself. Why can't other people hold dragons then? This one is so nice. For you, maybe, but I've had many people look at him and any fingers that have strayed near him have gone missing. That's terrible. Yeah, true, but, you are fine and all digits in place. I never heard of that gift before. Well, not many have come close to a dragon before. You have a gift, miss. You mustn't waste it. What should I do then? Haven't got a clue. But just remember you are special and you have a gift. Well, I shall try, but I don't expect I shall ever see a dragon again. Well, you can keep this one if you like. He's much too much of a nuisance, and I can never get near him. Please, just take him away from here. But I don't know anything about dragons. What do they eat? This one is usually quite happy with people's fingers. But I'm guessing you won't want to continue with that diet, so you could probably get away with pretty much anything. They aren't very fussy. You'll soon know enough what he wants. And that's it, is it? What if he gets ill? Any problems? I am here. Just pop back. Here is my card. Anna took it and thanked him for blinking. Come on, Anna, hurry up, Max shouted around the door. Saying her goodbyes, Anna and Blinkin left the shop and headed for home.